Hello everyone, I'm Baltmatrix, and today we're going to work on our core, and that is the core class Optimus Prime figure from Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom line. This is the first Kingdom figure that I've been able to get a hold of, and I purchased this figure over at Amazon. I have a couple more core class figures, including Vertebrake and Rat Trap on their way. It's Prime, but it's painted really, really well, and the molding is incredibly good for this size class. And that head sculpt works very, very well. I realize it is incredibly hard to see, but there are some baby blue eyes in there on that head sculpt. Now, what is the core class? Well, it's effectively the new Legends class, or in this size case, it's more like the Commander class or Commander series from Dark of the Moon. You remember those core commanders and the commander class from the Cyberverse line of Dark of the Moon from the movies? Yeah, they're starting to just run the names all over the place. It's like a Legends class figure, only tinier. I mean, it's a whole head shorter, or a half a head shorter than current Legends class figures. But don't let his small stature fool you. There's a lot of toy here. Head is on a swivel, ball joint in the shoulder, and then a hinge joint for the transformation, ball joint in the elbow, fists do not articulate. There is a torso, well, there is an ab swivel, then ball joint in the hip, ball joint in the knee, no individual toe articulation. The figure comes with Prime's classic ion rifle, but it's a little bit weird simply because his hands are so much smaller than you would think that he needs an extra little stick coming off the handle in order for him to hold it. You can also mount the gun on the top of the figure's wrists for some reason. I have a feeling that this is going to tie into other this feature is going to tie into other core class figures. Ironically though, the old Legends class figures and current Transformers have no problem holding the gun. The stock on the back though is a little bit big, so you can only push it down into a hand so far. Core class Prime also sports a butt plug. Or, I'm sorry, a plug for a stand on his tush. Robo-tush. Transformation for this core class Optimus is rather by the numbers for a modern Optimus Prime figure. The vehicle mode we end up with is fine. For this size class, it is absolutely fine. It's totally Prime, even if little bits, I think, are off here and there. I would have loved to have seen something to cover up the top of the legs. The fact that the blue hands are poking out ever so slightly here on the sides, whatever. But the thing that really irritates me is I'm getting real tired of Prime's feet just sticking off the back of a trailer like this. It's super annoying to me at this point. The gun can be placed here on the back, just sticking off like that, because that's how he rolls. You can get it to kind of sit inside of his arms back there, even though that looks really silly. And then there's something else. There's this little tiny peg coming off the front that pegs into either side so he can drive around and shoot fools while he does it. Far and away my biggest problem with this alt mode is the shoulders. I feel like I've got to sand down the backs of the shoulders just a bit in order for the arms to fit correctly, or the shoulders to fit correctly. They just don't sit there well, and you can see, because they're not completely flush along the back, they're causing the elbow or the arms to poke out. And if you just tilt them out a little bit, the arms will actually then work better, but you've got the shoulders pointing out to the sides, and I haven't figured out how to mitigate that yet, other than sanding down those little bits. Here's Earthrise Prime in his Mini-Me Kingdom counterpart. The proportions on the Mini-Me are a little bit off, but let's face it, kids these days, their proportions are always off. They're still growing, after all. Something to be wary of that you saw in the transformation, he's got these little pegs coming off the front of his hips that peg into the bottoms of the forearms when in vehicle mode. That makes it so that the figure can actually hold together much better. I really do appreciate that. But getting them lined up is a bit of a pain. Not the end of the world, however. So, something's been bugging me about this figure. I think it's fine. It is absolutely fine. Do we need yet another Prime? Not really. I mean, the Earthrise Prime is pretty much perfect, and I don't think this figure's necessary. Oh, yeah, when transforming it back, be sure to push the backpack down into the hips to lock them into place. Otherwise, you'll have floppy hips and floppy tummies. Don't want any of that. Oh, and then that panel can peg into place. So, where was I? Oh, yes. I don't think this figure is necessary at all. I have been racking my brain to figure out what good is this figure? Why do we need it? And then I remembered something. Then I remembered the front of Scorponok's box. Specifically, the figure, or the character that Scorponok is holding. That's why this figure exists. While not exact to the scale that's on the box for Scorponok, this is pretty close and it works a lot better than the Leader class figure. Okay, maybe a lot better is a bit of a stretch. As a baby Optimus Prime, Core Class Prime is perfectly fine, and if you're looking for a cheap Optimus Prime to get into, this is a perfectly good figure, though I would recommend maybe spending just a little bit more and getting yourself the oversized Siege Prime or any of the other knockoff Primes that are floating around on eBay for significantly less. In fact, you could get some of them for the same price as this guy. I mean, he's $9, and you're getting a shorter Legends class figure. It's not to say he's bad, just I don't think you're getting a lot for your money. I'm personally waiting for Vertebrick and Rat Trap to come in, so I'm really looking forward to those figures. But as my first Kingdom figure, this Prime, perfectly fine. So folks, let me know what you think of this figure down in the comments. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Please be sure to follow me over on patreon.com and Twitter. As always, I am Baltmatrix, and I'll catch you next time.